This is the Red Roof Recovery Show, a program to soften the path of recovery from substance and behavioral addictions. And you know what? It's actually much more than addictions. It's really about life. I'm your host, Tanya MacIntyre, and I really appreciate you spending the next 30 minutes with me as I share the experience that I've acquired over the years through my own recovery from addictions. And I'm about to say not only addictions now, but mental health disorders, because I think that it's all connected. Addictions are mental health disorders, at least I think so. But first, I would like to take just a moment to thank someone very special to me. He's a friend and mentor. His name is Russell Allen Scott. And Russell has gifted me the use of this perfect theme song. It's called Greatest Bravery, and it's from his CD titled The Master Key. Thank you, Russell. So what exactly is Red Roof Recovery? I get this question a lot. The reason this program is called Red Roof Recovery is because the roof symbolizes the hundreds of therapies that are available to us in our recovery from mental health disorders. And I'm here with you today to share the experience, strength, and hope that I have managed to gather over the years through my own recovery from not only drugs and alcohol, but also anxiety and depression, things that I still struggle with from time to time, every day. And what I've learned in the years of being sober is that the key to recovery, at least my recovery, the key has been to find what clicks with me. And I tell people in recovery circles all the time, this is about you. You have to find what works for you. What works for me may not work for you. But the key is to keep looking and to find something that clicks with you, resonates with you. You grab onto that, and then you do more of it. And the red part of Red Roof Recovery symbolizes the power of the color red. I just love the color red. It's my favorite color, and it represents love, energy, and passion. And I am passionate about my work with addiction recovery. And it also, in many spiritual traditions, red is considered to be healing and grounding, and it certainly has been for me. On this episode of the Red Roof Recovery Show, I want to talk to you about how our thoughts contribute to illnesses. I was surprised, actually, to learn that the world's #1 public health problem is depression. It is so widespread, in fact, that it is considered to be the common cold of psychiatric disturbances. Wowza. The approach to treating depression is being driven by the pharmaceutical industries, which continue to experiment with the brain's neurochemistry. And this misguided approach to treating depression is still failing to address the multifactorial roots of depression. It is a complex issue, and there are a multitude of answers for everybody, and everybody is different. And just like all addictions, depression is also a killer. In spite of the billions of antidepressant drugs and tranquilizers that have been dispensed in the past decades, suicide rates keep increasing at alarming rates, even among children. It's gloomy to even think about. But the good news in all of this is that depression is an illness that can be overcome. It can be managed, just like addictions. And the magic pill is not a tranquilizer, and it's not an antidepressant medication. The magic comes in the form of something called cognitive behavior therapy. And again, that is what's worked for me. That's what I'm so passionate about in my own recovery journey. So let me explain a little bit first of what cognitive behavior therapy is. It's commonly referred to as CBT. And of course, cognitive just means thought. It's thinking. So I consider it a thinking therapy. It has been for me. And it's proven to be a fast-acting technology of mood modification that you can learn to apply on your own. I think part of my depression was driven by a great deal of disconnection. I heard countless people in recovery circles say that the opposite of addiction is connection. And I believe that. It definitely was for me. I lived in a dysfunctional family unit, and there was a lack of connection to people who could provide healthy examples or any kind of mentorship at all. I was surrounded by people who provided just general bad life examples. And I also felt a lack of purpose and very little sense of meaning to my life, because even though I had been indoctrinated by my family's religion as a child, I still considered myself to be what Sinead O'Connor had said and made her very unpopular for a time. She said, I'm a recovering Catholic. And I feel like that still. But it was an unhealthy environment that I grew up in. So keep that in mind as well. I'm not rubber stamping the whole doctrine. There's some good stuff in there too. I also ended up in a toxic profession that perpetuates what I've come to call the Fudd Factor. And that stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Mainstream media has always been controlled by just a few American conglomerates. And the agenda has been to herd people into a hive mentality, to keep us consuming in order to feed the enterprise of capitalism. And as a journalist, my job back in the day was to create sensational headlines and embellished facts to keep people distracted and consumed by the Fudd Factor. The old adage, if it bleeds, it leads. Well, that was the daily mandate of my job. And I was actually half jokingly talking to a friend just earlier this week. And I can reminisce on the days of all the reporters and anchors would gather in the room for the morning assembly. And we would go through the newspapers, all the main ones, and then we'd look at what was coming across the wire. And all the news was the same, and it was all bad. But if it wasn't bad enough, we were all told that we had to come up with bad, like what else bad can we review? What else bad can we broadcast today? It was bad, bad, bad. Oh, man. Drugs and alcohol, unfortunately, became the anesthetic through which I endured that operation of life. And I managed to manage my addictions for several years. And while I was doing that, I was seeking solutions through self-help books and support groups. When I created Red Roof Recovery, I wanted to use various forms of cognitive behavior therapy to relieve symptoms of a variety of brain disorders and illnesses like depression, anxiety, addictions. Red Roof Recovery applies the latest scientific findings with evidence-based solutions that can be applied to a multitude of life's afflictions and illnesses, including addictions and depression, which I think often go hand in hand. At least that was the case for me. Cognitive behavior therapy is an approach to recovery and life that uses three main principles. Number one, our positive and negative feelings do not result from what happens in our lives, but rather from the thoughts that we are having about what's happening or what has happened to us. Number two principle around CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, is depression and anxiety result from distorted, illogical, misleading thoughts. Basically, the stories that we are often telling ourselves are simply not true. And the third principle of cognitive behavior therapy, when we change the way we look at things, we can change the way we feel. How often did I hear Dr. Wayne Dyer say those things? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And these changes can often happen quickly, and they can often happen without drugs. A book worth reading on that subject is a book called Feeling Good. It's a clinically proven drug-free treatment for depression. The author is one of my favorite people. He's a mentor of mine, Dr. David Burns. And he's a pioneer in the development of CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. And as a psychiatrist, Dr. Burns took CBT even a step further. And he has developed something called Team CBT. And that is an evidence-based and clinically proven program that uses a detailed format of techniques and tools that actually reprogram the core beliefs that are contributing to habits, addictions, illnesses, and various brain disorders. I recommend you check out Dr. Burns' website, feelinggood.com, and have a listen to some of his podcasts. He's a remarkable man, brilliant. So being one of the pioneers in CBT, I learned a lot from Dr. David Burns and his creation of Team CBT. CBT is really just a thinking therapy. And when I practice this thinking therapy, I become more aware of the thoughts I'm having. And awareness is the first step to progress. I started to become aware of what I was watching, reading, and listening to throughout my day. I know, right? Because oftentimes we just run on autopilot. So I would start asking myself, am I watching programs that are inspiring and uplifting? Even when I go on to, Prime TV, my Prime account to watch something just to turn my brain off for a while and stop the narrative that never shuts up in my head, the pickings are slim to find anything that is inspiring and uplifting. It's all pretty much gloom and doom and a lot of gunfights and bombs and terrorism and just a lot of fear-based stuff. So I need to be really selective with what I'm watching. And the other choice, Netflix, no better. Those are the two main streaming ones that I use. So when I go on there, I look for maybe stand-up comedy that I haven't seen. I know, Jerry Seinfeld. He's just done something recent and very funny guy. I loved his sitcom. And the guy, Ray Romano, I can't remember if that's the character he played or if that's his real name, I can't remember. But he is fantastic too, doing stand-up comedy. And now I'm watching 2.5 Men because I never liked it when Charlie Sheen was on there. But then Ashton Kutcher took over in later seasons, and it is hilarious. He's such a great actor, and I love his sidekick, the guy who played Charlie Sheen's brother and now Ashton Kutcher's freeloader roommate. I can't remember his name, but anyway, he's brilliant. His physical comedy is hilarious. It takes a lot to make me laugh out loud. This guy does it every time. I was most recently watching one where he bought some Spanx, and he didn't call it Spanx, it was called a man's athletic undergarment or something ridiculous. So he goes out to a bar and gets lucky with this lady, so he's going home with her to have a one-night stand, and he goes into the bathroom to freshen up, and he's trying to get this very tight leotard off. It is one of the funniest things I've seen in a while. So I want to make sure that I'm watching programs that are uplifting and inspiring and funny and making me feel good. I also want to be selective about what I'm reading. I want to read things that make me feel inspired. So I took all of the social media apps off my phone because that is one of the biggest downers that I have experienced in my lifetime. And I was getting addicted to that and that foolishness and just gloominess. So now I have to make sure that I'm exposing myself, reading things that are uplifting and inspiring. And again, it takes a little bit of work to find it. The pickings are slim out there for sure, but it's worth that extra search. And then I have to consider, am I listening to positive things? Even music, right? I have to make sure that I'm choosing music with positive lyrics. Again, the pickings are slim out there. So I pick things like, Phil Collins does Two Hearts. That's one of my favorites. And Pharrell Williams does that Happy song. That's also one of my favorites. So just being, I think, cognizant, right? Just thinking about what am I absorbing into my mind. And it takes a little bit of effort, but I'm worth it. And then I think about my self-talk. Oh man, we talk to ourselves in our head more than we talk to anyone. So making it a nice place to be, I think, is worth the effort for me. So I have to remind myself, am I talking to myself like I would talk to my best friends? Considering that, you're going to be talking to your best friends in an encouraging way. So yeah, am I talking to myself with support and encouragement? And I do talk to my best friends with support and encouragement. So why wouldn't I talk to myself with support and encouragement, right? It makes sense to do that. So I started urging my friends when I left my 22-year career as a broadcast journalist, because I recognized the agenda of mainstream media being to perpetuate what I call the Fudd Factor, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I created a company called The Good News Only, where you only hear good things to feel good. So I was interviewing good people doing good things. It was fantastic, but it was a lot of work. And at that point, I started urging my friends to take the diet that really works, a digital diet. I think I called it a media fast then, but then I changed it to digital diet. Watch, read, and listen to positive things and feel the joy that life can bring. I wanted it to rhyme so people would hear my voice in their head. Take the diet that really works. Because, speaking of diet industry, right, we're feeding a multi-billion-dollar industry that doesn't work. So that's why I wanted to say, take the diet that really works, a digital diet. Watch, read, and listen to positive things and feel the joy that life can bring. Kind of catchy, memorable. And then people say, oh, sure, easy for you to say, Tanya. Stick your head in the sand, play the ostrich. No, that's not what I am suggesting at all. This is not an ostrich practice. This is a practice of being selective about what you're absorbing into your mind. I kind of consider myself the gatekeeper of my mind, right? It's like, no, the buck stops there when you're going to be absorbed into my mind. I'm selective. The longer I'm sober, the more I think this thinking therapy, this cognitive behavior therapy known as CBT, is really just a form of mindfulness. I've become aware and mindful of creating and maintaining the motivation to manage my thoughts, my feelings, my moods, my emotions, my habits, my behaviors. And you know what? Even though I do this on a regular basis, I mean, this is my daily life. And everybody who knows me knows that I have a strict routine, and they pretty much know what I'm going to be doing at every day at this time. You know, they know on this day, this time she's going to be recording the show. This day, this time she's going to be taking yoga class. It's structured. I live by a structured routine. And I think anybody who is in a recovery journey will say the same thing. They have to have a structured routine. It's imperative for us to remain motivated to abstain from all of the destructive behaviors and addictive substances that we were having in our life. So I think being cognitive of those things, maintaining the motivation to manage my thoughts, my feelings, my moods, my emotions, my habits, my behaviors. So even though I do this every day, I still, my patience fuse can sometimes get really short. And if somebody says something that hits me the wrong way at the wrong time, man, I can snap. I just did it this morning. And I wasn't in a particularly bad mood. It was just the way somebody said something. And, I even try to default to people I really admire. Like I really admired Marlo Thomas when she was interviewed on a talk show about her relationship with Phil Donahue way back when. And the interviewer had asked her about the relationship, and she said, I wish there was a nice way to say, none of your business. And she just said it so nicely. Me, on the other hand, I have those sharp edges. I don't come across that way. I just say, it's none of your business. And it can cut. It's a very cutting thing, and I know that about my personality. And even though I am immersed in cognitive behavior therapy every day, 24/7 for me, I even fall asleep to affirmations and meditations. I can snap, which is why it is so critical for me to stay focused on what I am absorbing into my mind and then taking my advice, right? Just let it sit in pause. Just take a breath. There's an acronym that we love in recovery circles. It's SOBER, S-O-B-E-R. You stop, you observe, you breathe, you expand, and then you respond, right? I don't take my own advice often enough. I need to do that. If I had just stopped, observed, taken a breath, expand, then I would have responded much more nicely. I could have maybe said none of your business in a nice way. Is there a nice way to say none of your business? Maybe not. But again, it's kind of smoothing those sharp edges. I'm working on it every day. When I become aware of my thoughts and when I become mindful of how thoughts can be often unhelpful, I can start to question my thoughts to make sure they're actually true. And that is when I love to refer to this distorted thinking sheet. I have a template if you would like it. Please email me at redroofrecovery@gmail.com. I'll be happy to send it to you. So Dr. David Burns came up with the 10 most common unhelpful beliefs, distorted thoughts. So the first one is all or nothing thinking, sometimes called black and white thinking. So we say things like, if I'm not perfect, I'm a failure. Either I do it right or I don't do it at all. So it's black and white, very succinct. And then we've got the mental filter, where we only pay attention to certain types of evidence. This is also called confirmation bias, and everybody has it. Noticing our failures but not seeing our successes is a very common thought process around there. Jumping to conclusions. Oh, how often have I broken ankles on this one? There are two key types of jumping to conclusions. One is mind reading, imagining that we know exactly what others are thinking at all times. And then the other one is fortune telling, where we're predicting the future. So I did that most recently when I was following I'm also loving the 12-step program. It's one of the best personal development programs on the planet for sure. AA saved my life without question. But the fortune telling around, there's a step in AA where you make amends to people without doing harm to yourself or others by making those amends. So it took me a long time, since 2002 until just this year, 2021, to make an amends to my coworker, because I used to show up, drugged or drunk to work quite often, and this coworker knew that, and I was in denial because denial is more than a big river in Egypt, as we say. And I just treated him very, very poorly. And it took me a long time to admit that, to accept it as part of that illness that I carried for so long, and to pick up that phone and ask for his forgiveness. And I was fortune telling, just expecting the worst, that, I treated him like crap. He's going to, really give me a piece of his mind. And am I ready to accept that? But when I finally had the courage to do it, lo and behold, it was really nice. It was a nice conversation, not at all what I thought it would be, and it gave me closure. And when people extend forgiveness like that, it takes a big weight off the shoulders for sure. So another unhelpful belief that we fall into is emotional reasoning, assuming that just because we feel a certain way, that we think that must be true. I feel embarrassed, so I must be an idiot, kind of thing. Another one is labeling, assigning labels to ourselves or other people. I'm a loser, I'm completely useless, oh, they're such an idiot. That's why I discourage the use of labeling when we are in recovery, because, how often do we have to call ourselves alcoholic, addict, drunk, junkie, meth head, pothead? On and on it goes. Just perpetuating that stigma and that discrimination around addictions and addiction recovery. Another unhelpful belief is overgeneralizing, seeing a pattern based upon a single event or being overly broad in the conclusions that we draw. And then disqualifying the positive, another popular unhelpful belief, discounting the good things that have happened or that you have done. Like that doesn't count. Magnification, also called catastrophizing or minimization, blowing things out of proportion or inappropriately shrinking something to make it seem less important. Oh, the shoulds and the musts, the masturbation and shoulding ourselves. Using critical words like should, must, ought can make us feel guilty, like we have already failed. If we apply shoulds to other people, the result is often just frustration. And then the 10th unhelpful belief, distorted thought, is this is my fault, the personalization. Blaming yourself or taking responsibility for something that wasn't completely your fault. And conversely, you can blame other people for something that was your fault. So this thinking therapy can be very powerful. And it can be a daunting task to delve into the nuts and bolts of our emotions, which is one of the main reasons I avoided it for most of my life. Asking ourselves the tough questions is just the beginning. Then we have to start answering those questions. When I started to persistently ask myself the deeper questions that come with this thinking therapy, known as cognitive behavior therapy, I learned that asking the right questions at the right time can often change the course of life fairly quickly. It certainly has for me. Some questions that are worth asking and answering every day are, what do I want? That's a biggie. Next question, what am I doing about it? And then, how do I feel about what I'm doing about it? What is preventing me from getting what I say I want? What could I do differently to help me get what I want? And how would changing what I do or getting what I want make me feel? So those are some pretty powerful questions to ask and answer on a daily basis. We can often become paralyzed by that Fudd factor, that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. After a couple of decades of daily programming and the immersion in that Fudd factor, I became aware of this social hypnosis, and I decided to pursue another vocation that wouldn't be chipping away at my soul. So just stop. Sit with your thoughts. Not an easy thing to do, I know, but just try to do it for a minute, even. Imagine what you could accomplish for yourself and others in your life if you knew you couldn't fail. When you deeply ponder that question, you could find the key to unlock the door to new insights about your life. And this could start you on the path to healing from depression, which I believe might have its roots in a loss of meaning and sense of purpose. And it's directly connected to most addictions. And I think directly connected to a lot of the illnesses that tend to manifest around those feelings of depression and anxiety. Well, we've just got a couple of minutes left. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Half an hour of your day means everything to me. You are an integral part of my recovery journey, so thank you so much for being here. A little bit of self-promotion, shameless self-promotion it is. I've authored a couple of books. Yes, they're published. They're available on Amazon.ca. And they're also available at Finchers in the Square in Canada's prettiest town of Goderich, Ontario. Mindful Wisdom for My Philosopher Dad. It's a tribute to my father. He raised me and my baby sister as a single dad in the 60s while struggling with his own addictions. And my second book is called Daily Wisdom from My Philosopher Dad. That's more of a daily journal, and it comes with an inspirational message every day. And those inspirational messages, I think, are key because it gives you something to ponder, right? So you can open the book. It's lined for your little intentions for the day. You can have the inspirational thought, and then you can write down your thoughts, your intentions for the day. So my hope is that you will do that. Buy the book and actually use it every day as your journal. Take a few minutes, contemplate the message, and then write your thoughts and intentions for the day. The power of words, very powerful, and the power of the written word is magical, sometimes even transformational. At least it has been for me. My wish for you is to always live fully, laugh often, love always, stay mindful, and be positive. Remember, there is great power in knowing that the only thing we can control in life is ourselves. Talk to yourselves like you talk to your best friend, and may the force be with you. Remember, you are the force.